This is the Financially Simple Podcast, a show dedicated to destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner. And now, here's your host, pizza-loving, certified financial planner, Justin Goodbread.
Welcome to Financially Simple. This is a finance show for small business owners about money, how it works in our business and our personal lives, and how we can build wealth to be financially independent. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread, and today is episode number 41. Today's episode is titled, Starting a Business, Part 1, The Big Idea. Well, today I'm pleased to announce the start of a new podcast series. Yes, I know we just wrapped up a 40-episode series on how to prepare a business for sale and ultimately how to sell our business. But today I want to take us way back to the beginning. Today I want to start a multi-week series on how to start a new business. And you're probably like, Justin, didn't you mess up? Shouldn't we have dealt with starting a business before we got to selling a business? No, not really. We have to always know where we're headed before we ever start. And so that's why I wanted to start first with how to sell a business or how to exit a business. Now I want to take us way back to the beginning and how do we start a business? Now, as you know, I love starting companies. I love helping people start companies. I have personally started 5 businesses to date. Now, I've sold 3 of those businesses, and I currently operate 2 of those companies. Financially Simple is one of my businesses, and Heritage Investors is another. Additionally, I work with dozens of business owners who are getting ready to start up and grow their companies. I have literally spent 23 years of my personal life to date working in small business. I've spent the last 15 years of my life helping people start businesses. So I'm excited to walk you through this new series on how to start a business. And with that, I've got to ask the question, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you see a need? Say something like, man, there's got to be an easier way. To be honest with you, I typically deal with this when I run into technology. Technology can be so easy for me sometimes, it's so frustrating at the other times. And I'm like, often say, man, there's got to be another way to do this. And if my mind worked in the technological field where I knew how to code, man, I see so many opportunities for new business ventures. Maybe you're not looking for an easier way. Maybe you just completed your college training and you're in the Pacific area. I was talking with a graduate this last week, and we'll spend a little time talking about him, but he wants to start an auto mechanic business. So he just finished up his certifications on auto mechanics. He's been a gearhead and a grease monkey is what he calls himself. I'm not trying to mean anything derogatory for that, but he literally has grease on his hands every day, and that's the terms he used. He said, man, I just am a gearhead. I'm constantly getting grease up my fingernails, and I love it, and I want to start a business. So maybe that's someone like you, or maybe you just finished up an advanced doctorate degree in some medical field or some professional field, and you're like, man, I really like to put my training to the test. Or maybe you just have this crazy harebrained idea about something that could be the next big thing. Wherever you're at in this thought process, you may have considered, man, how can I do this and how can I start a business? So I'm introducing this podcast episode, and we're going to jump right in to part 1 of that thought. We're going to jump right in and we're going to deal with number 1, the big idea. So the very first step we do, we have this idea of something we can achieve or something we can take to market to add to the benefit of others. The very first thing we have to do is to clearly define the idea. If you're seriously thinking about starting a business, then chances are you have an idea which you believe will solve a problem or add value to others' lives. And that's awesome if you do. But to build a great business, we need to spend a little bit of time preparing before we begin implementing. So many times I see people who get this harebrained idea and they just take off and they just start charging ahead with anything and everything with no clear direction many times. And in those cases, some people do make it. I have met a few people who just by accident, and using their term, accident and circumstance, they survived the upstart of a business. But it's amazing to me the statistics of the number of people who never make it past year 1 and year 2. And those who make it past year 5 is even smaller number. And then those past year 10 is even smaller. So here's the thought process that I personally recommend to myself and that I walk people through in this big idea. So number 1, what is your main point of production or service? In other words, what are you going to provide to the customer base? Is it going to be a widget? Are you going to actually go in and produce something which can add value? Or are you going to add a skill set or a service? So, for example, I mentioned this last week. I met a young aspiring wannabe business owner who wants to start an auto maintenance garage. And man, he was full of just vigor. He was just ready to conquer the world. And I can't help. I mean, whenever I'm around people who have this vision, they have a certain energy that I want. And I just loved it. I also met with a young entrepreneur who wanted to build an internet-based business centered around an application. And it was in the educational field, but his whole business was centered around an app. I met another aspiring business owner who recently graduated from dental school. So they've just finished up 8 years of training. They're currently in a resident program, which for those that are not in the dental world, that's like some advanced training to learn a little bit more hands-on. It's almost like an apprenticeship. And I'm really undermining what dentists truly do in that resident program. That's the easiest way I can convey it to what we deal with outside of that particular area. But they're in a resident program and they want to start their own practice from scratch. But the challenge that each of these individuals have is to clearly define their product of service, or their product and their service, or their service, or their widget. They have to clearly define that. So for the dentist, it's going to be adding dental services. For the app developer, the product is an app. And for the auto garage, it's going to be a little bit of both. It's going to be both products and services in his particular business. So the first thing I always challenge everybody with is clearly identify what is your main product or service. The second step we do is we always take a survey. Now, we're not diving deep at this point, but I want to take a survey on the current marketplace. Are there similar businesses which currently are operating that match your dream? You know, in the case of the young dentist, there's lots of dentists everywhere. But in this particular case, this particular person wanted to start a dental practice in a rural area of the country. This particular area of the country didn't have a dental office or doesn't currently have a dentist office near their location. The nearest one is some 20, 30 miles away. And there's a pretty decent amount of populace there which could easily support the dental office. You know, the young entrepreneur who wanted to start a garage did have some immediate competition in his area. But he was looking at an added value type structure. So he was just doing a survey of the business. The one who was going to build an app, man, that's some stiff competition. We were talking about it, and there's a lot of app developers in the educational marketplace. So I challenge each one of these individuals to look at their respective market sects, the various different sectors that they were talking about, and come up with ideas that they could do with their dream better. And what I mean by that is you may have heard this before, and we typically deal with these things that says most businesses will focus on price, quality, or service. And it's been argued that this is an old saying that's not applicable anymore, and I'm not here to argue the merit of that. But what the idea is whenever we start a business, we can choose two of three of those. We can choose to have low prices or high prices, high quality or low quality, exceptional service or poorer service. And we can only be good at two of those. So, for example, if you have a high price and poor quality and high service, you're going to have a problem. If you have high service and high quality, you can charge a higher price. You can't have a lower price. If you say, I want lower prices, but I want higher service, well, then you're going to have a quality issue. So the old adage is you only can be two of those. Now, again, I'm not going to argue that today. We can challenge that product, but my challenge is look at your particular product or service, and ultimately you're trying to determine how that you can provide this product or service to your potential future customers for better results than your current competition. You know, in the dentist's office, they were looking at a particular area that obviously they could meet a need, and they could provide it to their particular market just by location alone. On the app, the customer who had the app, that could be a little bit more tricky. So they were going to have to automatically separate themselves from the current marketplace. The third thing we do is after we look at the current marketplace, we're going to go in and talk to our friends, our closest friends or family. Now, obviously, you don't want to go shouting your idea from the mountaintops. You're not going to do that. You may truly have the next multi-billion-dollar idea. So you really want to be careful who you tell your ideas to. I get to meet with a lot of people. Some of them have really, really, really good ideas. I heard this one idea, and I'm not sure it's ever going to go anywhere, but it was brilliant. I mean, just an amazing idea. And I'm not obviously going to take that idea. I'm not going to mention that idea to anybody about what it was, but it was an awesome business idea which could have a potential scalable business model, and it could yield unbelievable results for this particular person if they implemented their business idea. But whenever you talk to your friends and family, You want to be careful that, number one, they're confidential, but you want to bounce the idea off of them. Just see what they say. Now, you got to be careful even with your friends and family because, truth be told, our mama's not going to tell us our idea is awful typically. My mama's going to love us and tell us, son, you can do anything you want to do in the world. That's what my mom would tell me today. Son, you can do anything you want to achieve. And, because of that saying and that confidence that my mom builds into me and says to me consistently, I can honestly say I wouldn't be here today without that rah-rah, that cheering that my mom gives me. My dad did the same thing whenever he was alive. But maybe you don't have a mom or a dad, but maybe you do have a close friend. Your friends are going to do the same thing. If they truly love you and they truly care about you, they're going to go in and build some confidence in you. But with that confidence, we have to take it with a grain of salt. What we're trying to get them to do is dissect our idea and tell us why it can't work. So to me, the third thing we deal with when we have this big idea is we share it with our closest friends and families and see what they say. Just listen to them. Now, again, it may be sugar-coated, but at least you can gain some cursory thoughts.
You are listening to Financially Simple, destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner.
I want to pull the big idea down to number 4. And to me, number 4 is some of the most important areas that we got to focus on at this point in our business. And number 4 is we've got to find motivation. Now, that may sound a little strange, but I can only wonder how many business ideas never amounted to anything. Now, don't think me weird, but one of the things I like to do is I like to go to old cemeteries. I like to find the grave markers, which are hundreds of years old. I just like them. When I was a kid, I learned how to do grave rubbings, and that's where you take a piece of vellum paper, which is like a really thin paper, and you can put it up against the headstone and take a piece of lead, and you can mark it out and get exactly what the headstone says whenever you can't even read the headstone. And I just always thought it was kind of cool to do. There's this little church on St. Simon's Island, Georgia, named Christ Church. And I grew up near St. Simon's Island. We actually grew up in the same county. I didn't live on that particular island. I lived on another island. But this little small church named Christ Church is one of the oldest locations in the state of Georgia. For those of you who know your colonial history, Georgia was a penal colony. It was where prisoners were sent to. Mosquitoes were bad. There was all sorts of things. But for the most part, it was a penal colony. And this particular church came about through John Wesley and some other ones, and James Oglethorpe. Actually, James Oglethorpe. John Wesley did another church there in that area. But in there, they have an old grave. The old grave dates back to 1804. So you're talking some 200 years old, and you can still go over and see this old grave marker. About a year and a half ago, I was up in West Virginia, the middle of nowhere, and I mean the middle of nowhere. If a man was screaming, no one could hear him. It was that desolate. And lo and behold, I literally trip across a headstone. And I looked down, and there I've stumbled across in the middle of the woods an old family burial ground. And the headstone was dated 1826. And I was amazed that people were in West Virginia in 1826. It just baffled my mind. I'm surprised people are in West Virginia in 2017. Now, that's a joke. It's tongue in cheek. I've got a lot of clients in West Virginia, and they give me a hard time. They call me Flatlander, and I call them hillbillies, and we just have a blast. But nonetheless, whenever I run across these headstones, the thing I find fascinating is twofold. Number one, I'm not sad that the people died. I mean, that's life and death, and I've had death near and dear to me, and it hurts. That's not what's sad to me. What's sad to me is oftentimes there is an insurmountable amount of dreams which will never be fulfilled. And there's an amount of wisdom which will never be shared. Friends, I don't know about you, but I don't want my dreams to die. And I don't want the wisdom which I've earned through the school of hard knocks to go to my grave and never benefits others, which is why I do Financially Simple. But I don't want my dreams to die. So I need motivation. I need things to keep me going because business is hard. Business will wear you out. Just this week alone, I'm working on about 70 to 80 hours of time away from the house during working hours. I have not walked into my house except for last night before 10 o'clock at night. And I've left every morning before 5 a.m. And I'm tired. And so sometimes we need some motivation. At my desk in my office, if one day, in fact, we may put a picture of this on the blog, on my desk, right in front of where I work, there's two little items that I see every day. One of them is sweet, and one of them is motivation. So In front of my desk, there's a little car. It's a metal die-cast car, and it's of a 1964 Shelby Cobra. And that car is a very interesting car to me. It's a story. I think Tim Allen actually has one. I know Jay Leno does, but it's a very interesting car. It carries a high price tag with it, but man, I just love it. I fell in love with it when I was about 15 years old, and I've always said that one day I will probably own a 1964 Shelby Cobra kit car, because I don't think I'll ever want to afford the original Shelby Cobra. These things are like $500,000 plus cars, and that's just a lot of money for me to pay for something that's a piece of metal with paint on it. But nonetheless, I like the car, and my motivation is that one day, at some point in my life, I will buy a car that's similar to that particular Shelby Cobra. So to me, it's motivating. The other thing that's on my desk is I have the word DAD, D-A-D, built out of Legos. And it sits right in front of that Shelby Cobra. And I intentionally do that. I do that to remind me that even though I can work very hard, even though I can get up and chase the dollar every day, there's things that are more important to me. Now, this may not be you. I listen to these Tony Robbins, and I listen to these Gary Vaynerchuk, and these guys are super energized, and they are so efficient with their time. And I'm like, I don't want to say envious, but I'm in awe of how they manage their lives. But that's not who I want to be. And I don't mind the way they chase their dreams. In fact, I want to stand behind them and just shout them and cheer them on and say, go get it. Have clients like that they chase every day. They're chasing their dreams. And I want to get behind them like a cheerleader at a football game and scream at the top of my lungs and say, go make it happen. I'm here for you. What can we do? Let's do it. Let's chase it. Let's get it. Giddy up. I mean, I want to make it happen. But me personally, I'm not so sure I want to work with that aspect, because I got this little kids at home who made Dad out of Legos. And at this particular phase of mine and Emily's life, our family's life, there is nothing more important to me at all than to make sure those kids know who their dad is, know who their mom is, and that we are doing everything within our power to send them off so that they can chase their dreams. So with these two things staring at me every day, I'm motivated. I'm motivated to stay focused while I'm at work, and when I'm at home, to be at home and stay focused. So my challenge to you today is simple. Dream big. What are you dreaming for? If you've just finished up that degree and you want to go out and start your dental practice like this individual this week, dream big. Let's make it happen. If you just came out of school and you want to go and build the garage to turn wrenches and help people in their automobiles, dream big. Let's go make it happen. If you want to be on an app that's in the educational space and you want to take over the world, then let's dream big and let's make it happen. So my challenge to you today is simple. Dream big and think big. As I always say, life is hard. Business is frustrating. Starting a business, friends, that's not for the faint of heart. You better have you some gumption. The one thing I will tell you, like I say every episode, money does not have to be complicated. Let's continue to make our lives, at least financially, simple. Hey, y'all go out and make it a great day.
You have been listening to the Financially Simple podcast. The information in this show is for informational purposes only. This show is not investment advice. Instead, seek help from a competent financial advisor. Justin Goodbread, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Heritage Investors, a registered investment advisor.